Hey YouTube, how's it going? VenomMan20 here tonight. So this video is a video that should have came out a long time ago, but I really did not want to make it. Still to this day, I do not want to talk about this subject, but you guys deserve to know exactly what happened. I wish the title was clickbait. It kind of is, but that is the story that swept the nation. So let's actually talk about the facts. The day that I got arrested for keeping venomous reptiles. If you don't have the time to stick around during this entire video, just go ahead and skip it. Know that half of it is complete and utter garbage that you hear online. They weren't there, they're just publicizing fake, sensationalized crap. But I want you to know everything that actually happened, all the facts. So here they are. I'm going to lay this out. We're going to leave this in 2019 and we're going to move on in 2020 for the best year ever for my channel. And for conservation and for awesome venomous critters. So let's go ahead and get on into this story. The reason I said to go ahead and skip this video if you wasn't going to watch the entire thing, there's a lot of details. So if you skip around this video, you're going to miss a lot. You're not going to understand a lot. I want to get to the entire story. So this might take a little bit. Hopefully you're patient. But anyway, it all started. Let's just start at the very, very, very beginning. My grandpa got terminally ill. He got cancer. I was very close to my grandparents, always have been. They practically raised me. I lived at their house all summer, every summer. And it really hurt my grandma, needless to say. When grandpa passed away, grandma could no longer keep the house. It just wasn't going to be financially possible. So I offered to move in with grandma and I would buy a side building beside the house. And I would have all my reptiles in there, and then I would help grandma with bills, help take care of her, make sure she does okay. Fast forward, I got an offer to start working at a zoo. I went on vacation, just got a job offer. It was seemed like a pretty good gig. I was really excited. They said that I could film YouTube videos there, I could handle the reptiles, I was going to be head of herpetology, it was going to be my parade. I could run it how I wanted to, just as long as everything was taken care of and in good condition. So anyway, I told my grandma that. Didn't really want to leave grandma because needless to say, me and grandma was very close. So she's like, you really should follow your dreams. You've been doing this your entire life. You're obsessed. I don't want to hold you back. And I'm like, yeah, grandma, well, what's going to happen to you? She's like, I'll be fine. I'll make it. I got the rest of the family, you know, she's going to be lonely, but that'll be okay. So I decided I would take grandma's advice and follow my dreams. So I moved halfway across country, 900 miles, out to Maryland. Maryland has a strict policy. No venomous reptiles except for like colubrids, like your boom slings. So no vipers, no cobras, and of course I owned crotalids, which are your rattlesnakes, and I owned cobras and all this. So I asked the zoo, can I keep these animals on loan? That would be underneath your permit. These are my animals, the alligators and everything. And you guys already got these animals. I'll just keep them on loan, I'll feed them my food, and we'll take care of it from there. And they're like, yeah, sure, that'll be fine, no problem. We would really still love to have you as part of the team, and if you're a package deal, whatever. So anyway, I got there, and I walked in, and they told me it's going to be a mess when you walk in. The old head of herps left, and everything's just in shambles. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. You know, I came in, and it was a mess. The guy that had been working there had never handled a reptile a day in his life, and he had been there for 2 years, so he had for a year. He'd been there a year at this point. So he had started to work with reptiles, but needless to say, the cobras and the bushmaster and stuff like this, some of the stuff that he just wasn't real comfortable with. So the zoo got rid of a lot of that stuff, but they still had a huge plethora of reptiles, and the stuff off exhibit was just ridiculous. They had 20 reticulated pythons off exhibit for no reason. We only had 2 retics on display. If you keep reticulated pythons, the longest snake in the world, and they eat and they poop all the time. Real problem. Whatever, I mentioned to the zoo, hey, we should probably downsize some of the stuff that we're not using. You know, keep 2 or 3 just as backup in case if anything ever happens to the ones on display, we can have another animal to put out there. But, you know, we can't breed, we can't sell, we're a zoo. So anyway, they're like, yeah, that's a good idea. But we can't sell to the general public, blah, blah, blah. I don't really need to get into this part. Fast forward about a year into it. I'd made it about a year. In the director that was supposed to be taking over seemed like a decent enough guy. He wasn't very strong, like backbone wise, so he's a pushover, needless to say. But it was supposed to be left to him inside of trust, right? The zoo, as the initial owner of the zoo, stepped down for retirement. And I seen that it wasn't going to be taken over by him. It was pretty obvious. This is a politics game. I probably should have kept my nose out of it. But the zoo was going to be taken over by the owner's son. This is a zoo I'm not going to be naming just because I don't really want to be sued. But this zoo was going to be taken over by the owner's son, and he was a very demanding, cocky individual, right? So he wanted to have like the Wild Wild West out there. He wanted to be lassoing stuff in front of visitors. He wanted to be wrestling alligators. He wanted the whole 9 yards. That ain't what I'm about. If you've ever been to my channel, you understand I'm not all about this showing off of reptiles or, I don't like stressing animals out. I like to be very gentle, very calm. We clashed a lot. What ended up happening is we parted ways. I was fed up with the place. I didn't want to be there anymore. I really wanted to succeed since I moved that far, but I just didn't want to do it anymore. He didn't want me to be part of the team because I was pretty stuck in my ways. I'm not a pushover when it comes to this kind of stuff. I'm kind of a prick when I need to be. So he wanted to get rid of me. So they ended up getting rid of me. Great. I don't care. Whatever. But I lived in Maryland. Right here's the line. I was the last house in Maryland. Pennsylvania right here. I could have took a leak out my bedroom window and hit Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, it's illegal to keep all reptiles under the sun. Maryland, very strict. I had 7 days to get all my cobras and everything off of loan. Crunch time. What do? What is the best option here? How do I go about getting these animals off the loan? They told me I could have a little bit more time with my crocodile. So I had a friend with permits. I'm like, hey man, can I house my crocodile and my alligators at your place? He's like, yes, the alligators I'm actually going to put on loan at a place that does education. I'm like, that's great. So I actually took those down to the place that did the education. We put those on loan. I put the alligator in his care. And then the venomous snakes, I'm like, what do I do? If you watched my top 5 things I wish I knew before I became a zookeeper, you would know that being a zookeeper, you're broke. You're broke all the time. Where I was living, Baltimore's here, DC's here, New York's up here. Very expensive to live in there. Extremely expensive. One of the most expensive places to live in America. Very expensive. I had a really crappy wage. I had never lived on that little amount of money in my life being a welder. Needless to say, I make pretty good money. So I didn't have much in the bank at this time. I was pretty much broke. So to drive the animals back to my friends or to drive the animals back home or to move to rent a different place would have been impossible. It wouldn't have been possible. These are animals that I have had my entire life. So the coral cobra was actually my 18th birthday present. Don't get an elapid for your 18th birthday present, but it was. It was my first elapid. I got them for my 18th birthday. Okay, the forest cobras. They were mine. That's another thing that the news really got wrong. They thought that the snakes were from the zoo, that they were the zoo's, and that I stole them. I've never stolen anything in my life. I've never even got a speeding ticket. I'm a pretty blue-collar guy. I don't try to get in trouble, right? Anyway, the cobras actually came from one of my best friends. My best friend had passed away about a year prior to this. He was a great guy with a pretty interesting collection. And I got those, and I wanted to keep those forever and breed them, have babies, just keep his lineage alive, right? Because he was a great guy. I don't have any pictures with him. I don't have crap. Those cobras were it. So anyway, as you probably know the story already if you're clicking on this video, I took the venomous snakes home. Was that right? No, that wasn't right. But I decided I need to move this alligator, right? The alligator ended up going back to the zoo, back and forth because of pond issues, long story. I decided I need to grab my croc. I might have said alligator, I meant crocodile. Brutus, my Morlet's croc. I need to grab my Morlet's croc and I need to drive him back to Missouri. My car was pretty loaded down. It was the middle of winter. I grabbed this croc, I drove. I drove as far as possible, you know, drove all the way through the night, made it to another zoo in Missouri that I was good friends with the owner. I'm like, hey, is there any way you could watch this animal? And they're like, yes, we could watch the crocodile. That wouldn't be an issue. We'll just put him on loan here. We'll put him on display, whatever. So since I had the crocodile taken care of, it had been over a year since I had been home to see grandma or my mom or anybody. They had not been out to see me because they weren't financially set to do so. So therefore, I went back to see my grandma. I called up a good friend of mine who had worked with venomous snakes before. I'm like, hey, could you run over to my house? I got a hide key. Check out everything, make sure that all the reptiles are okay. If you could water them, that'd be great. If you could feed them, that'd be cool. I got rodents in the freezer, whatever. He hit me back, yes, not a problem. He said that he went in there, everything looked fine, everything was good. And I'm like, okay, sweet. So 3 more days and then I'll be home. So 3 more days passes, I drive all the way back, I get home. I'm tired. Cages are a little crappy, you know, they're just not as clean as I want them to be, needless to say. My boa constrictor flipped over, his water dish just soaked the bedding, just absolutely disgusting. He just completely soiled it, but I mean, it is what it is. Boas like high humidity, needs to be cleaned, but it is 2 in the morning, I'm going to get some sleep. So I don't work venomous when I'm tired anyway. So I go ahead and I go to bed, and the next morning I wake up to a knock on the door, police search warrant. Great. So I go ahead and go to the door. I cooperate. They go in, seize the venomous reptiles, which are the cobras from my friend who had passed away, the coral cobra, which I got for my 18th birthday, and then the rattlesnakes. I had a friend of mine who gave me a couple Western Diamondback rattlesnakes, and the cops said these animals are in deplorable conditions. To say deplorable is pretty out there. They didn't have water dishes. They did have water dishes, but they were empty. So all the rattlesnakes, everything I had in tubs. This is what they were at the zoo. I just put them in tubs, brought them home, whatever. You know, I mean, that's the same exact thing that they're on in the off display section of the zoo. That's just what reptile keepers do. You probably have a couple snakes at home in tubs right now too. Western Diamondback is a low humidity snake. So therefore I don't want to put a water dish in there because if he flips it, now we got wet bedding. But even if he doesn't, that water is going to build up the humidity. So therefore I always took them out, put them inside a tub to soak, or I would take them out, put them inside a different tub, and a lot of times I'll spray my snakes. Rattlesnakes don't like being sprayed, but if you spray them right there on the bottom lip, they'll start drinking and they'll drink the water that away. That way I don't have to worry about the humidity buildup inside the cage. But since I was leaving, I put water dishes and everything because I was going to be gone for 9 to 10 days is what I was expecting. So they flipped their water dishes just like normal. It's 10 days, it ain't going to hurt them. The boa flipped her water dish, that happens. Anyway, so they came in, like I said, they said the reptiles didn't have water, they were in deplorable conditions, and then they said that you have 2 snakes in your freezer. They're right. I did have 2 snakes inside my freezer. If you know anything about me, I love king cobras. I'm obsessed with king cobras. If I ever have a snake pass away, I will freeze it. I don't care what it dies of. It's getting froze. It's going to be food unless it's something viral. So one of the snakes in question was actually a stillborn. This snake was born completely developed. It just wasn't alive when it was born. So I'm like, this is great. This is king cobra food. You know, I'll put it into the freezer. I will use this at a later date for food when I have a king cobra because I knew I was going to be getting one at some point. And then another one was a monocobra that had passed away a couple years prior. I just tend to keep that stuff inside my freezer. If you come into my freezer right now, I have a big Bothrops. But that's beside the point. That's also king cobra food. It died of fatty liver disease and practically old age. You know, it was overfed when I got it, a little fat, died from that, so I decided to keep it. Anyway, besides that fact, they left. They had taken the venomous snakes. I was not arrested. I was a free man. They said, your court date's going to be here. Cool. Then they said, you know, you're going to get fines, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, needless to say, interesting, whatever. The animal control showed up then shortly thereafter. When the animal control showed up, I had been up for, 2 days later at this point. So when I say shortly thereafter, I mean within the week, they were there. They came in, everything was clean, everything was nice, because I'd been back for 2 days, you know, just like normal. I try to keep a clean house. If you check out any of my reptiles right now, I have absolutely no poop inside the cage. I might have a spilt water dish somewhere. I'll find it. I'll take care of it. But anyway, animal control came in there. They said, we don't see anything wrong here. They're like, this one boa, we would do this a little bit different. We put it like this or do it like this. They take care of dogs and cats. They said they would send me a list of what they would change. They never send me a list. 2 years later, I have never got a single thing in the mail or an email or anything. They have every contact information out there, and they never asked to see my reptiles again. So I made it to court. They dropped all the charges if I agreed to probation, besides 2 cases of the fact that I had venomous snakes in the state and I wasn't supposed to have them. The stipulation is I can never work with venomous snakes again in Maryland, period. Now, there's a chance that if I was to get a zoo job in Maryland that I could do a little rebuttal. I could possibly land the job if it was in a professional setting. I don't know. I don't really care. Never going back to the state. Doesn't really matter. But it's just a real shame that it all came down like that, because the newspaper, first and foremost, and the news agencies said that I had stole the animals. I had not stolen the animals. If you check my charges, stolen animals is not even a charge. They were in horrible conditions. No, they weren't. You know, animal control didn't say anything. Now, the venomous reptiles, I did have those illegally. I am sorry for that. I was in the wrong. I just didn't know what to do at that point. Those animals meant everything to me. I had left my entire family behind to pursue working with reptiles. And when I lost that, all I had was the reptiles that I had personally. And so I'm sorry. Washington, D.C. news agency contacted me. They said, hey, we don't think that the story that has been published is completely accurate. Would you mind talking in front of cameras and telling your side of the story? And I said no. And you would think, well, why? Why wouldn't I try to clear my name? It's because at that point, I had already hurt the reptile community. I had already put a bullseye, and I don't like any story about venomous snakes in the news, especially if it's mine. That was my bad. You know, I hurt the community, a community that I've helped build, that I never wanted to let that happen. I love the venomous community. I love all you guys. I love the reptiles. It was just a real crappy scenario. So anyway, that's my story. A lot of people here recently have been saying, you have an amazing reptile collection. What happened? Overnight, you got all these crazy reptiles. I don't understand. Let's explain that real quick. I'm going to do a video on that too, just to prove all the, naysayers, just in case that they didn't make it to the end of this video. But I went off YouTube for 1.5 years. I didn't do anything. When I took my channel down, I took it down because I was getting a lot of flack, needless to say, because when I woke up that morning, I got a text from a girl that I had a crush on that said, you're a real disappointment, what the hell. I got a text from my uncle that more or less said, you're a piece of crap, because he didn't know the full story, because I hadn't told anybody that I got in trouble yet, because I was pretty embarrassed, needless to say. I had gotten texts from friends. I had friends delete me shortly thereafter, people that I really admired and looked up to. So anyway, at that point, I took down my YouTube channel. I just didn't want to deal with the flack on there anymore. I didn't want to deal with the stress. It was too much stress. I couldn't handle it. I was not planning on ever putting my videos back up. I didn't really want to. I don't know. I guess I felt a little anxious at that point. I was always nervous, at that point from there on out. And then somebody asked me, where'd your videos go? I always found them super helpful. I'd really like to see your videos. You had one of the coolest clothes, blah, blah, whatever you said. Thank you to that person. That was about 2 months after the fact. I put my videos back up, and I just decided I'll just never upload again. I'll be off the platform. I won't do it. I don't want the stress. I've already made the whole community mad at me. Why would I want to come back? I don't want to tick people off. So I put the videos back up. People could watch them, whatever. The stiletto snake video that I uploaded, actually, they had found a new species of stiletto snake. That video completely exploded overnight. And CNN was talking about, the snake that Spite Melts Bone, which is my title to my video, so that really took off. People seemed to enjoy the video besides the audio to the video, and that kind of struck a chord. That kind of got me, you know, a year and a half after the fact, I'm like, that felt kind of good. You know, I kind of like the fact that I could teach some people about a snake that they've never heard of. That's pretty interesting. And then a couple of my friends like, oh, you should upload videos again. When are you coming back to YouTube? And I just got to thinking about it. And the last video that I had uploaded up until that date, I had stated that as long as people are killing snakes and hating snakes, I will never give up. I will always spread my passion for these reptiles, trying to teach others as much as I humanly can about reptiles until the day that I die. And what did I do? I gave up. I walked away from it all. You know, I built this YouTube channel up quite a bit. It was doing very well, kinda. I mean, you know, I was happy with it. Other people say it wasn't good enough, but whatever. I mean, you know, it's my channel. I don't care. So I'm a hypocrite. I've got to do something about that. I can't be a hypocrite. That's horrible. So I decided I will upload a couple videos. I'm not in the place to upload a couple videos, but I'll just upload and see how many people still hate me. And I came online and uploaded a couple videos and it went really well. Oh my gosh, you're back, Venom Man. That's awesome. I missed you, you know. It's like, oh, that feels really good. Because at this point, I'm not even going to pet stores anymore. You know, I'm anxious to even go into, I couldn't go to a reptile show. I haven't been to a reptile show in 2 years. You know, I've been to 3 reptile shows since that whole incident. And anyway, I'm back pedaling. The point is, a lot of people ask me, what happened? You know, how did you get all these reptiles? A couple things. First and foremost, I went from making $34,000 a year as a reptile keeper at a zoo, and they never paid overtime or anything like that. They would cut your hours and do all this crap. So I made more like $30,000 a year at a zoo, made the best money there, which is really sad, to making over $100,000 a year, making 6 figures. So therefore, making stupid money. What do you do with that other $60,000, $70,000? Reptiles. It's the only logical answer. You know, I still drive a piece of crap car, and I still love my herps. So with that being said, I bought quite a few reptiles, and then a friend of mine's like, hey, I don't mind if you film my collection if you help me clean some cages. Okay, that would be cool. And then my cameraman's like, hey, I got some extra money. You want to buy some new stuff? And I'm like, yeah, I do. He's like, okay, they'll be my reptiles, but you can film as much as you want to. Cool. So therefore, all 3 of us came together, and we're now, I'm showing you all the reptiles that all 3 of us own. So if in one of my videos I don't say, this is my snake, or this is not my snake, it's because I don't want to waste your time. I don't see that it's relevant. If I'm showing you a beautiful Bushmaster, take it as a beautiful Bushmaster. It's not my Bushmaster, but it is a beautiful Bushmaster that I just got done cleaning up his poop. So it almost feels like he's mine. At the end of the day, no, I don't own him. Don't see how that's relevant. I'm not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. I just don't want to waste your time. If you want to ask down into the comments, is this your snake? Is that not your snake? I'll tell you. I don't care. I have nothing to hide. But anyway, yet again, I'm very sorry to the reptile community. That is my story time. It's the longest one that I'll ever post. I'm sorry for the taking my channel down. I'm sorry for everything that I've done to you guys. I'm sorry for putting a black eye on the community. I should have never done it. I just didn't know any other answer at the time. I thought I could keep him at my house for 2 weeks, 3 weeks until I could get the money saved up, if I can find another job, and I can run back to Missouri. And it was too cold in January to put him in my trunk, and I didn't have any more room in my car because I drive an eco-friendly car, and I got a 6-foot crock in the back. I got my luggage up front. Just wouldn't fit. Anyway, life's a bummer sometimes. This next year is going to be crazy. It's going to be the most venomous year I've ever had. And I don't mean just like 100 snakes to show you. I do have like 100 more snakes to show you. But this is the most toxic year possible. Some of the crap that I have to show you is amazing that I never thought I was going to get to work with. So hopefully you subscribe and stay tuned to that. Hope you guys have a wonderful new year. Have a wonderful 2020. And I hope to see you there. Have a wonderful night.